Hey there, I'm Jessica, and this is Bookshelf to Big Screen. Today, I'm talking about the book Black Klansman, a memoir by Ron Stallworth, and the 2018 Spike Lee movie adaptation. Real quick, if you want to avoid any spoilers, watch for this. I'll have it up during any revealing parts, and in the event you want to wait and read or watch for yourself, you can just skip forward until it's gone. On to the story. Ron Stallworth tells us about his experience as the first Black man and youngest detective in the Colorado Springs Police Department. As an intelligence unit officer for the CSPD, he managed to lead an intelligence operation in which he successfully infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan. The movie differs quite a bit from the actual true story, so let's get into it. The movie starts with the filming of a white supremacist propaganda video. This is unique to the movie, and I'm guessing its purpose is to set the tone. Then it cuts to Ron being interviewed at the CSPD. When asked, Ron says he wasn't drafted because he went to college. After more questioning, he's hired. In the book, Ron applied to be a police cadet at the age of 19. The cadet program allowed high school graduates aged 17 to 19 to train and test at the police academy while performing civilian support functions within the department and earn well above the minimum wage. Ron became a cadet to be able to pay for college, so the movie makes him a little older than he actually was. In the movie, Ron's first assignment is in the records room. We see a brief interaction with a colleague discussing Sybil Shepherd. Instead of commenting on her appearance, Ron says he thinks she's a really good actress. In the book, this interaction with the older white guy in the records department stands out in Ron's memory. Unlike the movie, where Ron avoided remarking on a white woman's physical appearance, in real life, Ron was friendly with this guy, and they'd regularly talk about which celebrities they thought were attractive. One night, however, Ron brought up a Black woman who was a popular entertainer in Las Vegas. The older guy said he couldn't relate to Ron on this woman because he never looked at a woman of color in terms of physical attractiveness. This, for me, stood out in the book. The movie shows how Ron had to watch what he said at all times, but this part in the book showed how this older guy was kind of repulsed by the idea of a Black woman being beautiful and how it shocked Ron. In the movie, while still working in records, Ron encounters another officer, Landers. Ron refuses to let him use the derogatory term toad. Landers obliges him, but only temporarily. Ron and Landers butt heads throughout the movie, and Landers is a real piece of work. Landers was not a real person, at least not one that was described in the book. At one point in the movie, someone says Landers had been a bad cop for a long time and that he shot a Black kid who claimed he had a gun. There's a similar story in the book about an officer named Ralph, but all the other scenes involving Landers do not appear in the book. I don't doubt that Ron may have encountered people like Landers in his lifetime, so maybe adding him was to bring that to light, or maybe it was just to give us someone to really hate in the movie. In the movie, Ron tells his sergeant and chief that he wants to be an undercover detective. The chief tells him that he's a rookie and he'll stay in records, but a short while later, he's asked to go undercover to attend an event where Stokely Carmichael, a former high-level member of the Black Panthers, was going to be speaking. Carmichael was invited to speak in Colorado Springs by the Black Student Union, and the CSPD wants Ron to attend and monitor the audience reaction to make sure that Carmichael doesn't incite violence in the crowd. Ron meets Patrice, the president of the Black Student Union, and a romance begins between them. The next day, Ron debriefs his experience of the event with the chief, and afterwards, the chief transfers Ron to the intelligence unit. In the book, Early on in his time at the CSPD, Ron discovers the narcotics unit and sees how the undercover detectives operated, and he wanted to be a part of it. Every chance he got, he'd ask Arthur, the sergeant who was in charge of narcotics, to make him an undercover detective. It was Arthur who was the one who gave him the assignment to go undercover at the Stokely Carmichael event. The main difference in preparing for this assignment is that since it was the narcotics unit, Ron was given $100 in anticipation of a drug transaction that might lead to an arrest. The character of Patrice is also unique to the movie. In real life, at this time, Ron was already dating the woman who would later become his wife. After the event, Ron immediately went back to the station to debrief and then file his reports. It took another 3 months before Ron was officially an undercover narcotics detective, and he'd been on the force for 4 years when his investigation into the Klan began. In the movie, Ron sees an ad with a number to call for information on the KKK. He calls and leaves a message asking for reading information, giving his real name. He immediately receives a call back from a Klan member named Walter. This scene is a bit comical because Ron tries to sound like someone interested in joining the KKK, which garners the attention of the other detectives in the room. Walter asks when they can meet, and Ron says he's available Friday. When he hangs up, another detective, nicknamed Flip, asks if he actually gave his real name. Ron is surprised when he realizes that he did. In the book, the ad only has a P.O. box number, so Ron sends a note asking for information. He adds the undercover phone line and address and signs his real name, thinking that he's just going to get some information mailed to him. 2 weeks later, he gets a call from a Klan member, but his name is Ken. This is when he realizes there's more potential here and immediately thinks of a narcotics detective named Chuck who has the same build as him. When Ken asks to meet, Ron says that he can meet next week, giving himself time to get approval to have Chuck help with the investigation. In the movie, Ron tells the sergeant that Walter wants to meet, but they need a white person to go as Ron. Together, they go to ask the chief if one of the narcotics detectives can help with the investigation. Initially, the chief doesn't believe that a black man on the phone could pass for a white man, but Ron convinces him and he allows them to proceed with the investigation. Flip is the detective who goes undercover as Ron, and he also happens to be Jewish. In the book, after the phone call, Ron goes to his sergeant and tells him that he'd like to use Chuck to assist him with this investigation, and there's never any mention that Chuck was Jewish. His sergeant is on board, but he had to get Arthur's approval for Chuck's involvement. Arthur refuses Ron's request, and he's the one who doesn't believe that a black man could pass for a white man over the phone. With his sergeant's approval, Ron decides to go over Arthur's head and take his request directly to the chief. The chief was on board and directed Arthur to provide any necessary manpower for Ron's investigation. In the movie, Flip goes to meet Walter, but a man named Felix meets him instead and makes him get in his car to go to the meeting with Walter. Felix makes it clear that he should never say Klan and he should call it the organization instead. Ron and another undercover detective named Jimmy follow in their own car. Felix takes Flip to a bar where he meets Walter and a few other Klan members. Another guy named Ivanhoe hints that they are planning some bombings, but Walter downplays it. Walter likes Flip and gives him the forms to join, but Felix is suspicious of him and asks if he's undercover and if he's a Jew. In the book, when they agreed to meet, Ken told Ron that another man named Butch would meet him at a local diner and take Ron to meet Ken. Ron learned from Ken that the Klan had planned to do some cross burnings and that they were taking out ads in local papers to show their presence in the community, but nothing as extreme as a bomb was ever discussed. Also, there's never a character that's as aggressive as Felix, and everything that Felix does, which is a lot of crazy stuff that I'm not going to get into, is not in the book at all. In the movie, Ron calls the Klan's national office to ask about the status of his membership card and ends up speaking with the Grand Wizard, David Duke. Ron flatters him, and Duke tells him that he will personally ensure his membership card is processed and sent out that day. Ron has several calls with Duke, and they get pretty friendly. Duke also tells Ron he'll be in Colorado Springs for his initiation. In the book, this exchange happened pretty much the same way, with one exception. Duke had already been planning a trip to Colorado that January, so Ron was able to ask questions about his upcoming trip. The initiation does happen when Duke is in town, but it's not the reason for his visit. Ron is also able to use information he gets from Duke, like when and where planned rallies are going to be, and give that information to the appropriate law enforcement agencies for that area. In the movie, Walter tells Ron that they need a new leader. Walter doesn't think that he'll get the votes, and he doesn't want Felix to be in charge. He thinks Ron is the best person for the job. Ron tells him that he can't because his dad is sick in El Paso, and he'll have to be traveling back and forth too often. In the book, Ken pushes Ron several times to assume this leadership position. Ken is in the army, and he's going to be stationed in San Antonio soon. Chuck is worried about entrapment, but Ron thinks that they can manage to avoid it if they are careful. They refuse the position several times, but eventually Ron tries to convince the chief that they should do it. More on that later. In the movie, the FBI reaches out to Ron. An FBI agent tells him that 2 of the Klan members that Ron has identified are working at NORAD, and that he's done a service to his country. In the book, Ron does share information with the FBI, but it's actually agents from the Peterson Air Force Base Office of Special Investigations who informs Ron that 2 names on his list of the Klan members were NORAD personnel with high-level security clearances, and that the Pentagon viewed their activity with the Klan as having potential national security implications. Those 2 people were immediately transferred out of their top secret positions. In the movie, the chief assigns Ron to be Duke's police protection while he's in town, due to the death threats he's been getting. Ron and Flip protest, saying it could compromise their investigation, but the chief doesn't change his mind. In the book, Ken requests police protection for Duke, and the chief did assign Ron as his personal protection. Ron thinks it will compromise his investigation, but no one else was available at the time. Additionally, Chuck and Jimmy were both undercover as Klan inductees, so the chief believed that it was sufficient police support, and he felt that Ron was the best person for the assignment given the circumstances. In the movie, Duke performs the induction ceremony. They all watch the movie Birth of a Nation, and then they have their luncheon. Ron asks Duke if he could have a photo with him, and just before the photo is taken, he puts his arm around him. He grabs the Polaroid before Duke can, and then tells him that if he touches him, he'll arrest him for assaulting a police officer, which is a 5-year sentence. Duke is angry, but can't do anything, and Ron leaves. One of Felix's friends recognizes Flip, and his cover is blown. Felix is called away, and Flip is able to leave without incident. In the book, the events of the induction ceremony and the luncheon are pretty much the same, but they happen over a few days. When Ron asks for the photo with Duke, it's at the beginning of the event. Ron puts his arm around Duke before the photo, and Duke tells him he can't be in a picture like that. Then he pulls the last-minute trick and threatens Duke with arrest. Duke walks away, and Ron has to continue to provide security during the luncheon. In the movie, the Black Student Union invite a guest speaker, Jerome Turner, to speak at an event. Turner tells the story of his friend who was lynched in Waco. Mr. Turner is a fictional character for the movie, but the story he tells is true. Felix plans to attack this speaker and Patrice. In the book, Ron tells a story about Dr. Ralph David Abernathy, a prominent civil rights leader like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., visiting Colorado Springs. His visit was sponsored by a Black Baptist church. The church minister was upset that the district attorney had charged a teen black boy as an adult, so he started a protest accusing the DA of being racist, and he wanted to use Dr. Abernathy to add his star power to their cause. Ron was there to provide security to Dr. Abernathy, who had received death threats. He discovered that the minister hadn't been honest with Dr. Abernathy. The boy, who they were protesting for, had murdered a young white man for no reason, just to see what it felt like. He gave a full confession, and the man that he killed had a wife and child. Ron told Dr. Abernathy the truth, and even though he was upset, he proceeded with the demonstration. There was a group of about 25 Klan members there to counter-protest. At the end of the movie, the chief tells the investigation team what a great job they did. Then he tells them there have been budget cuts and they have to stop the investigation. He wants Ron to destroy all evidence of the investigation, saying he doesn't want the public to ever know about it. He also tells them not to have any more contact with the Klan. While Ron starts ripping up papers, the phone rings. It's Duke, and Ron finally lets him know that he's the real Ron Stallworth while the others listen. In the book, the chief calls an end to the investigation when Ron asks him if he'll approve the move to assume the leadership position in the Klan. Ron's sergeant was ordered to have the phone line changed so there'd be no more calls from the Klan, and Ron was told not to have any further contact. The part about the chief wanting everything destroyed and having no record of the investigation is true. Ron believes that the chief, as the former head of the public relations section of the CSPD, felt it would harm the department's image if the public found out about any involvement with the KKK, regardless of what that involvement was. Ron began to shred some documents, but decided to take his casebook and some other files home. So that pretty much covers the biggest differences between the book and the movie. The movie was really good, but after reading the book, I have some mixed feelings. So much was added to the movie to make it more thrilling and dramatic, and the book is not as thrilling, as in it's not a nail biter, but it's really interesting, and it's kind of incredible how much reach his investigation had. So even though it's the same baseline, a black man joins the KKK, I feel like these are two entirely different stories. So if you haven't yet, be sure to read the book on this one. Well, that's my recap on Black Klansman, a Memoir by Ron Stallworth, and the 2018 Spike Lee movie adaptation. What did you like or dislike about this book or movie? Let me know in the comments. I've included links to both the book and movie in the description below so that you can check them out too. If you enjoyed this recap, please click like, and be sure to click subscribe to see my next video. Thanks for watching.